Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the second of our 3 Inter-Neighborhood Council Organization special meetings, Meet the Candidates Forum. We are glad to have you join us, whether in person or streaming live on our City of Oxnard's YouTube channel or on Zoom. Before we dive into the forum, we will take a moment to handle some minor business as a part of this special meeting of the Inter-Neighborhood Council Organization. Thank you for your patience, and we will begin the forum shortly. Adam, or Mr. Secretary, will you please take a roll call?
Thank you, Chair. Bartolo Square North, Nick Castillo. Bartolo Square South, Justin Richards. Blackstock North, Nancy Wren. Blackstock South, Christopher Bissonette. Bryce Canyon North, John Hike. Here. Cabrillo, Rainey Steffen. Cal Giesler, Teresa Salazar. Here. Carrot Square, Guido Goldner. Channel Islands, Dave Copper. College Estates, John Beck. Diamond Bar, Dennis Ralph. East Village, Ronald Orejo.
Present.
El Rio West, Dan Ryberg. 5 Points Northeast, Pat Brown. Fremont North, Dave Ebbett. Fremont South, Kim Winch. Hobson Park East, Roger Poirier. Hobson Park West, Cecilia Ravello. Kamala Park, Robert Lucio. La Colonia, Ramon Lopez. Here. Lemonwood Eastmont, Larry Stein. Orchard Park, Diana Velzy.
Present.
Oxnard Dunes, Lisa Hewitt.
Present.
Oxnard Shores, Walt Hagedum. Pleasant Valley Estates, Rosanna Biggerstaff. Redwood, Carlos Quiros. Rio Lindo, Sandy Diaz. River Park, Paul Schneebelen. Rose Park, Afonso Arroyo. Here. Sea Air, Edward Castillo. Seaview Estates, Isaac Califf. Sierra Linda, Sergio Garcia. South Bank, Debbie Arabello.
Present.
South Wind, Sofia Vega. Tierra Vista, Christina Thomas. Via Marina, Doug Tauber. Wagon Wheel, Amanda Meir. West Village, Michael Gleason. Wilson, Angela Whitecomb. Here. And Windsor North, Andres Sanchez. Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Dave, will you lead us in Pledge of Allegiance, please? Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Thank you all for being here tonight for this important candidate forum brought to you by the Inter-Neighborhood Council Organization. For those unfamiliar with this organization, we are comprised of the 44 chairs of all active neighborhood councils within the City of Oxnard. We take pride in representing the voices of our neighborhood chairs and the diverse communities we serve. This forum offers a valuable opportunity to learn about the candidates' visions, priorities, and plans for our community. Each candidate will have a chance to share their ideas and respond to the questions submitted by our residents and INCO membership. Under new business, INCO Candidate Forum, that the INCO General Membership conducts a candidate forum for candidates running for office in the November 5th, 2024 election. Tonight, we are fortunate to have a dedicated moderator for this event who is truly one of our heavyweights in this organization, the chair of East Village Neighborhood, Ronald Arroyo.
Thank you, Chair Diana Velzy. Good evening, Oxnard residents and those watching at home. I am Ronald Arroyo, a member of the Inter-Neighborhood Council Organization and chair of the East Village Neighborhood. I am your moderator for the position of City Council District 3. We are proud to present the candidates for City Council District 3, and we have 3 of 4 of them present with us tonight. The INCO of the City of Oxnard consists of the chairpersons and executive boards of Oxnard's 44 active neighborhood councils, all being volunteers, giving residents the opportunity to participate in governmental decision-making processes and serving as an advocacy group for each of the neighborhood councils. This forum is being hosted by the INCO. As an organization, it cannot and does not publicly support any candidate for political office. This is an opportunity for voters to hear directly from the candidates to get the information they need to make an informed choice when voting. We are glad that all are here to hear from our candidates, and we do hope that the voters get the information that they need. The rules of the forum have been previously communicated to the candidates as follows. Candidates will be given 90 seconds to present their opening and closing statements. Questions will be posed to all the candidates, and each candidate will be given 60 seconds to answer. Candidates may have 1 page of notes to refer to and will additionally have paper to write notes on. We will now begin with the opening statements from all candidates. The seating order was randomly drawn prior to this event. Please take note of the timer before you. The first candidate, Mr. Victor Rasmussen, will start with their opening statement, followed by Mr. Aaron Starr. You can now begin, Mr. Victor Rasmussen.
Thank you for the invitation to speak to the voters of Oxnard. My name is Victor Rasmussen, and I'm running for 3rd District City Council. I've worked alongside the city for the last 23 years under the Oxnard Performing Arts Center. I've seen things that I didn't like, decisions that were made, financial and affected events that are essential for our community. For example, kids' events and the arts. So that's the reason why I decided to throw my name in the hat, so to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rasmussen. Our next candidate is Mr. Aaron Starr, followed by Councilman Oscar Madrigal. Mr. Aaron Starr, you have 90 seconds.
My name is Aaron Starr, and I'm asking for your vote for City Council. I've been walking neighborhoods throughout District 3 since July. The overwhelming sentiment of residents is that we need new leadership on the City Council. Residents tell me city streets and alleys are in bad shape. Homelessness is getting worse. Housing costs are too high, and many Oxnard families struggle just to pay their bills. As your City Councilman, I will listen to the residents and make City Hall more responsive to community concerns. Residents tell me we need to reduce homelessness with a humane, tough love approach that shuts down outdoor encampments, expands job training and housing resources to help the temporarily homeless, and requires medical treatment for mentally ill and drug-addicted homeless individuals. Residents tell me we need to make housing more affordable for local families by reducing building permit delays that drive up the cost of homes, and by working with employers and developers to build more workforce housing. And residents tell me we need to take action to expand crime prevention measures, expedite overdue street repairs, and clean up unsafe alleyways. For too long, Oxnard residents have been ignored by career politicians at City Hall. It's time for a change. I'd be honored during your vote and represent you on the City Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Starr. You now can begin, Councilman Oscar Madrigal.
Hello, everyone. My name is Oscar Madrigal, and I've been serving on the City Council since December of 2016. Over the last 8 years, or a little under 8 years, the city has gone through so many things, some good, some bad, and all throughout, we've persevered and little by little done a good job of getting us where we need to be. Obviously, I've been here long enough to know that, change takes a while. It takes time. I do feel in the current course that we are in, it's going, a bit slow for some, but I've seen that positive progress. We've seen issues throughout the city, biggest one being in 2019, where we had a $9 million shortfall. We did have to lay off some city employees. It was a difficult task for the council, but since then, roughly since about 2021, there has been light at the end of that tunnel. Slowly but surely, streets are getting paved. You could tell by viewing the city, look at our city parks. They're not where they need to be, but you are starting to see that some of them are a little bit more green, and we're seeing progress in the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Madrigal, and thank you all. We will now enter the question section of the forum group by topic. We're going to move on to our first topic about Oxnard governments. Mr. Rasmussen will be up first on this, followed by Mr. Starr, then Councilman Madrigal. The first question is, the city council ultimately hires and fires the city manager, the only city employee in which they have that power. Do you believe that our current city manager, Mr. Alex Nguyen, is doing a sufficient job for the city? What is at least one reason that he is or is not? Mr. Rasmussen, you have 60 seconds.
So since Alex came on board with the city, he has done some drastic cuts, I think. One of them is closing a museum. The other one was trying to close the Performing Arts Center, which I work for. So I didn't agree with that decision, the way they went. He also wound up, terminating a lot of people in parks. So our parks, they weren't looking that great. Everything was dying. And a lot of people used the park, especially the kids. So it affected a large number of our communities on that aspect. I can't say something that he did well. I haven't seen anything he's done well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rasmussen. Mr. Starr, you're up next.
Well, I'm not inclined to judge the city manager until I have an opportunity to work with him. Sometimes you'll find that the way an employee works with somebody who directly supervises him is very different than how he treats the public. I think he could treat the public a little bit better than he does today. The one warning sign I see when I look at any manager, and this manager in particular, is what is the turnover like among the people he hires? And the turnover at City Hall at the upper levels is really, really high. And that tells you something about the quality of the leadership there. If you are constantly having to replace people, usually the problem is the manager that hires that person. And I think that's a real issue we have today at City Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Starr. Last is Councilman Madrigal. You may begin.
Thank you. Working with the city manager over the last 6 years, I have seen a lot of change in the city. He came in to the city in July of 2018 with a plan. And, at times, me and some of the other council members, we were a little hesitant. We were a little pessimistic that some of his ideas and plans may not work. And he has proven me, I'll be honest, wrong a couple of times. He has come in with a plan, he has used that plan, and he has made it work. There has been a big change here at City Hall, and a lot of it has to do with him. He's done a great job for the city, and overall, he's looked at the long-term picture, which I find to be very interesting and has been very resourceful to the city as a whole.
Thank you, Councilman Madrigal. We'll now move on to our second question of Oxnard governance. The first person will be Mr. Starr, followed by Councilman Madrigal, and last by Mr. Rasmussen. Your question: you are only one of 7 voting members on the City Council. How have you or will you be able to gather the support of your fellow council members for initiatives that you want to champion for? Mr. Starr, you have 60 seconds.
Well, I can tell you I've served on boards before where people have different opinions. And what you do is you just find out where they're coming from, their reasoning behind it, and you try to put yourself into their shoes. And sometimes you can bridge that gap, and often, in my case, I've often been able to come up with solutions that we all agree upon. So what I would really like to see here is I'd like to see more an exchange among council members. I've watched council meetings, and it seems like all they do is rubber stamp the proposal that staff presents. I don't see the level of debate or spirit of inquiry that I see in other organizations. I just think to myself, if you have the same opinion as everybody else on the council, you have no business being there. You add nothing to the table. So in my mind, I embrace the diversity of opinion, and I think we can work together and come with solutions.
Thank you, Mr. Starr. Our next person will be Councilman Magical, followed by Mr. Rasmussen. Councilman Magical, you have 1 minute.
Thank you very much. Working in any field requires the aspect of collaboration and knowing the interaction with people. No one could do anything by themselves, being on the council included. You have to learn to work with others. And throughout, times, we will disagree. We may not see eye to eye, but what always remains constant is that level of respect. We may, be upset at one another at the end of a council meeting because of disagreeing viewpoints, but at the end of the day, you leave it there at the table. There are no grudges held by any of us, and we realize that what we are doing is what's best for the public. And by having that, anyone up here, if your best intentions are the public, then you are in the right field and you will learn to work with one another.
Thank you, Councilman Magical. Our last person, Mr. Rasmussen, you may begin.
So I agree with working with others, but there's one thing my father was told me: don't be a follower, be a leader. So you got to work together, I agree, but it seems like they're not working together. They're all over the place. There's only one person leading the horse, in my mind, especially in these council meetings I've seen before. Decisions that were made, they need to go out in the field. Look at all departments. Look for yourself. What's going on in our community? The spending is out of control. I agree. We need to get more control of our spending, especially the budget. There are some things that are just mind-blowing to me. The way the budget is being allocated to different departments, and I don't agree the way it was done for quite some time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rasmussen. We'll now move on to our third topic on Oxnard governance. We'll first begin with Councilman Magical, then with Mr. Rasmussen, and last with Mr. Starr. Your question: one of the 5-year 2023 to 2027 priorities for the City Council on the category of organizational effectiveness is to, quote, invest in appropriate staffing levels to get the job done, and to invest in staff training and development, end quote. What would you do to invest in appropriate staffing levels, training, and development? Mr. Rasmussen, Yes, Mr. Rasmussen, you have 60 seconds.
So staffing-wise, that's one topic that's important because you need to be able to, allocate your leaders so they know how to go about leading the city, and especially departments. There are some great leaders in the city. There are some that are not. So training-wise, I agree. We definitely need to allocate more resources for them so they know how to lead this city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rasmussen. We'll next go to Mr. Aaron Starr and then Councilman Magical. Mr. Starr.
I think in order to decide whether you have appropriate staffing levels depends on the metrics you measure. I've never seen real metrics used at this city to compare what appropriate levels are compared to the activity taking place. I would love to see something that shows me the number of people that are in the building department compared to the number of permits that they've issued in the last year and in years before that. If you can measure something, you can manage it better. And today, we don't really measure very well. So it's very hard to decide on appropriate staffing levels until you put those metrics in place. The other advantage of putting metrics in place is that you can decide whether we're doing a good job or not. You can look at things in terms of cost. You can look at things in terms of speed. You can look in terms of quality. And you want to measure based on those factors so you can decide whether a good job is being done and whether training needs to be done to improve in those areas.
Thank you, Mr. Starr. Councilman Magical, you're last on this question.
Thank you very much. Overall, first, the appropriate staffing levels and training. We as a city need to realize that we need to provide for our residents and see what is overall best, not only at the present time, but also long-term, to see what the appropriate staffing levels would be. And it's not just only the staffing levels, but getting that appropriate training. It goes beyond the aspect of theory, but more into the aspect of implementation. As a city, we do provide jobs, but we do provide services, and those services need to be met at not just a basic level, but at a great or to sufficient level, so people see that their tax dollars are being put to good use. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Madrigal. We'll now move on to our second topic on economy and finances. We'll first start with Councilman Madrigal, then Mr. Rasmussen, and then Mr. Starr on our first question, which is Measure O is a 20-year local half-cent sales tax approved by the voters in 2008 that provides locally controlled funding for protection, maintenance, and expansion of vital city services. Have expenditures approved by the City Council from Measure O funds been appropriately and in the best interests of the city? Would you support another measure to extend the sales tax increase after it's scheduled to sunset in 2028? Councilman Madrigal.
Thank you very much. Probably close to 20 years, or since 2008, the city of Oxnard has benefited from Measure O. Some way, shape, or form, either with the fire department, police department, and other departments throughout the city. That half-cent sales tax has been put to use. Over the last couple of years, the city council has tried or gone to the point where we realize that it's going to sunset. So we're beginning to wean off of that Measure O half-cent sales tax. However, as it's going to sunset in 2028, coming to the realization of where everything is, would I feel that it's in the best interest of the city? Yes, I would. But ultimately, that would be up to the voters to decide. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Madrigal. Mr. Rasmussen, you have 1 minute.
So on Measure O, there are some good things and bad things on the funding that goes out throughout the city, especially on projects and things that affect our community. There are some things that are good and some are not. I don't agree with another sales tax, especially for the city of Oxnard, especially with jobs and wages are barely climbing up after COVID. So our spending wise for our budget, it needs to be more controlled, I believe. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rasmussen. Mr. Starr, you're last on this question.
The problem when you have an easy time raising taxes is that you don't have any reason to ever become more efficient. And that's the attitude this city has. It doesn't figure out ways to become more efficient because it thinks it can always raise taxes. Families are struggling just to pay bills here. And having the high tax rate, the highest tax rate in the county, while we're getting some of the worst service levels throughout the county, is just not acceptable to me. There's no way in God's green earth that I will vote to extend that half-cent sales tax. That money is fungible, just like anything else going into the general fund. There's not money being spent for a specific item. It's all one big pot. And we've been talking for several years about weaning off of Measure O. That's been the talk of the city. But their real plan, I think, is they want to put it back on the ballot to extend the tax because there's never enough tax for them. It'll never be enough.
Thank you, Mr. Starr. Our second question will first go to Mr. Rasmussen, then Councilman Madrigal, and last by Mr. Starr. Your question: the unfunded accrued liability, UAL, is a shortfall between money a city has invested with the California Public Employees Retirement System, CalPERS, and the amount required to fully pay out the benefits that are legally obligated to retirees. According to the City of Oxnard's own information, the UAL was $322 million in 2022. the city initiated a pension obligation bond, POB, validation process to pay off some or all of the UAL. Just last month, the California Court of Appeals Second Circuit affirmed a judgment in favor of the city's effort to validate POBs. Do you agree with the court's judgment regarding validating POBs? Should the city do something else besides a POB to decrease its UAL? Mr. Rasmussen, you have 60 seconds.
Yes, I do agree with that decision. One of the things that really is important is to take care of our city employees once they retire. You know, they worked hard for their money, and they deserve a retirement service package. And other things, it's a hard topic on that one, I think, for me. So.
Thank you, Mr. Rasmussen. Next is Councilman Madrigal, then Mr. Starr. Councilman Madrigal, you have 60 seconds.
Thank you. Unfunded liability is a big topic issue. It is a big topic issue in a lot of cities throughout the state. It is something that, you know, long-term, everyone plans for retirement, and that's great. After putting in so much work, you do obviously deserve your retirement. A lot of cities have been struggling with that unfunded liability. Just in this last budget, we did have a surplus, and we did put money towards that unfunded liability. Now, concerning the court case, I tend to agree with what the final result was, and I do feel that, you know, overall, we need to take care of our employees. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Madrigal. Mr. Starr, you're last on this question.
Well, I have a different opinion on this. I am on the answering side of that validation complaint. So when the city sued everybody in order to say we can do this, I answered the complaint along with the Howard Jarvis Taxpayer Association and the Ventura County Taxpayers Association. This is all about the people having the right to vote on going into debt. And what's happening is that this city wants to put us several $100 million further into debt so that they can buy stocks on margin. That is basically what this is. It is absolutely reckless. And I know there's a similar case in San Jose where the courts also said that a city could do that, and the Supreme Court has already agreed to hear that. And our case here in Oxnard is probably going to be combined or be put on held up until that decision is actually made. But I certainly hope that the Supreme Court decides that we shouldn't be putting people into debt unless the voters get to vote on it.
Thank you, Mr. Starr. Our third question will be first answered by Mr. Starr, then Mr. Rasmussen, and last by Councilman Madrigal. Your question: permits in Oxnard run the gamut from ADUs, cannabis, film, public art, special events, signs, solar panel, tobacco, etc., just a few of the 39 different types of permits. Does the city have a good permitting system? Why or why not? What has been done or what could be done to improve the permitting system? Mr. Starr.
Our permitting system is probably the worst in the entire county. I hear nothing but nightmare stories about people wanting to add on to their homes. ADUs take over a year to do. Businesses have trouble opening in Oxnard. It's just atrocious what we have today. I even came up with a proposal that went onto the ballot. It was Measure F, the Oxnard Permit Simplicity Act, was placed on the ballot in 2020, and we voters voted for it. It was to streamline the system. This city is dragging its feet on implementing it, which doesn't surprise me considering how much it drags its feet on so many other things. If I get on this city council, I'm going to be pushing really hard for the Oxnard Permit Simplicity Act to be implemented like the voters told the city they would, that the voters told the city that they should. And I've seen no effort by this council at all to uphold the people's vote and make sure this gets put into place.
Thank you, Mr. Starr. Next is Mr. Rasmussen.
I agree with the permanent department, especially in the city. That's the worst. I've seen in any city. Working with the city along for the last, let's say, 23 years, pulling permits for, especially for our department, was like pulling teeth. They would say one thing, and then we would do their request, and they shoot it back to us, say, no, we did this other thing. So back then, permitting was good. Now the permitting department has been the worst that I've seen in years. So I do agree that we need to better train our permanent people, especially dealing with city buildings and private-owned, especially building permits. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, before Councilman Madrigal finishes, we'd like to remind all candidates to speak into the microphone so all can hear you. Again, Councilman Madrigal, you are last on this question. Please begin.
Thank you very much. As far as our permit system, does our permit system need some help? Yes, it does. Does everything that happens, is everything 100%, on the up and up with time and so forth? The answer is probably, could we do better with time? Yes, we could do better with time. Are we working on it? The answer is yes. At least I can't speak for the rest of the council, but I do have my faith in Mr. Pengelly, who is in charge of that department, and I do feel that slowly but surely he is turning that department around. Now, is change going to happen overnight? Unfortunately, the answer is no. But like I said, are we putting money into the department? Are we doing what we need to do to improve it? The answer is yes, we are. So thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Councilman Madrigal. We'll now move on to our third topic of homelessness. And our first question will first go to Councilman Madrigal, then Mr. Starr, and then Mr. Rasmussen. Your question: the Supreme Court ruled in the case City of Grants Pass versus Johnson that, quote, the enforcement of generally applicable laws regulating camping on public property does not constitute cruel and unusual punishment prohibited by the Eighth Amendment, end quote. Essentially, this means that cities could fine or arrest unhoused people who lack other shelter and camp in public areas. As reported by the Ventura County Reporter, the Oxnard City Council has passed quality of life ordinances prohibiting camping in certain areas such as downtown's Plaza Park. Do you agree with these ordinances, or should they be repealed or strengthened to include fines or arrests? Councilman Madrigal.
Thank you. Ultimately, beginning with this topic, there's always the humane aspect of it. We as a council have always looked at it this way. Do we wish our count or overall was lower? Of course we do. However, as you know, the topic of homelessness takes a whole team approach. We've worked with other cities, we've worked with the county, and ultimately we have to work with the state. There will be no one solution just coming from the city of Oxnard. As far as the topics and everything goes, we have been putting in money just right here across the street. In the coming year, we are going to have a homeless shelter with permanent housing in it. We are working to get people off the streets. We cannot continue doing this aspect of just moving people from place to place.
Thank you, Councilman Madrigal. Mr. Starr, you're next on this question.
I think one thing we have to think about is that these are human beings. We're all God's children. We need to treat them with humanity. Having said that, I think that we're doing a real disservice allowing people to live on the streets here in Oxnard. I'm very much in favor of an anti-camping ordinance, not so that we can arrest people, but so that we can have leverage over the decisions they make. Because today, we'll offer services for their drug addiction, we'll offer services for their mental health, but they refuse to take it. And if we have an anti-camping ordinance in place that's vigorously enforced, then we can go to a homeless person and say, look, my friend, you can't be on the street anymore. We could prosecute you, but how about if instead we steer you to these services that will save your life, because you don't live a long life on the street as a drug addict. I think we can save people with the anti-camping ordinance if it's written and enforced the right way.
Thank you, Mr. Starr. Our last person on this question is Mr. Rasmussen. You may begin.
Homelessness is a very hard topic to deal with. Yes, there are human beings just like everybody else, and they need the respect that everybody gets, no matter if you're homelessness, no matter if you're a millionaire, they're human beings. And yes, we don't have any resources for drug addiction. And arresting them and finding them is not going to help, because basically they don't have any money to pay any fines. And throw them in jail, that's going to be more tax money for us. So it's a topic that needs to be more addressed in City Council. We need more resources here for the homelessness, drug addictions, drugs. There's not enough places for them to send them. So basically, not here. We send them to LA, and that's uncalled for. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rasmussen. We'll now move on to our second question on homelessness that will first be answered by Mr. Starr, then Councilman Madrigal, and last by Mr. Rasmussen. Homelessness is arguably one of the top subjects for City Manager Alexander Nguyen. Do you believe that he has been successful in decreasing the incidence and/or mitigating the negative consequences of homelessness? Mr. Starr.
No. He has a housing first approach, which means that there's no accountability whatsoever for the people that are there. You've got people that just simply destroy the living quarters that you give to them. There's just no respect at all for property. You've seen the way they treat public places, the needles that are on the street, the feces, the disease, the violence, the crime. Our homeless problem is worse, and we need to do something about it. We need to be aggressive about it. We need to put in an aggressive anti-camping ordinance. We need to shepherd these people any way we can into medical treatment for their drug addiction and their mental illness. And one thing I'll add, by the way, is the reason why other cities ship their homeless to here is because we allow it.
Thank you, Mr. Starr. Our next person to answer is Councilman Madrigal, and then Mr. Rasmussen. Councilman Madrigal, you may begin.
Thank you very much. Again, over the last 6 years, has the city manager, Nguyen, done a good job with homelessness. City manager has done a good job with homelessness based with the tools that we had at the time. Up until recently, we were going off of the Boise case. The Boise case specifically stated that public property people were allowed to house or sleep in public property. That was recently changed with the Supreme Court case. Up until that point, we've been working with the housing first approach, because ultimately, yes, they are human beings. Everyone does deserve housing. And if, like previously stated, if we just keep arresting people, they'll just come right back out and nothing was going to change. So to answer your questions, I do believe the city manager has done a good job with homelessness.
Thank you, Councilman Madrigal. And our last is Mr. Rasmussen. You have 60 seconds.
I don't think he's done a great job dealing with the homelessness. And that's a topic that's going to take years to fix, especially here and all over the world. It's just there isn't enough places, enough funding to help the homelessness. So it's not going to get fixed overnight. It's going to take years. But as long as it's being taken, it's getting worse and worse. I mean, I've dealt with homelessness. I've talked to them. They're very polite. I've never run into a homelessness that was violent. I talk to them like a regular human being, and they are. So like I said, arresting them and finding them and all this other stuff, it's not going to work. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rasmussen. We'll now move on to our next topic, specifically on the district. The first question answered by Councilman Madrigal, then Mr. Rasmussen, and then Mr. Starr. Your question: The Sakioka Farms specific plan in the Rice Avenue commercial area neighborhood was adopted 12 years ago in 2012, which is now largely zoned as M1 PD, light manufacturing plan development. Most people know this place as where Amazon's fulfillment center is located and easily seen from US Highway 101. Should the specific plan be amended? Should the zoning be changed? What is your vision for this area for the next 4 years of your term and in 40 years? Councilman Madrigal.
Thank you very much. Sakioka Farm has been talked about for years within the city. Up until recently, Sakioka Farm was always a dream. Over, I would say, the last 5, 6 years, we finally got Amazon through the permit process, get Amazon built, and it has brought the city a lot of tax dollar money from their manufacturing. Now, long-term, looking at the rest of the property, there has been interest by certain individuals and companies, and long-term, do we may need a change? Maybe. That just depends on interest of what people want there and who's interested in the area. Long-term, I see this as a great opportunity for the city to build not only its tax revenue, but to build it as a destination for people to come here.
Thank you, Councilman Madrigal. Next, Mr. Rasmussen.
So I live right across Amazon. The one thing I hated to see is our fields being taken away. Oxnard was known for farm workers. Instead of big companies coming in, I think we should start building homes for the homelessness instead of big companies. That's all I got on the topic.
Thank you, Mr. Rasmussen. And our last, Mr. Starr.
We need higher paying jobs in this city. If we're going to afford the housing costs that are here, we need to raise incomes. And the way you do that is by bringing more businesses here. We got businesses in other cities that pay their employees higher wages. They would love to come here and hire this workforce because Oxnard has some of the most hardworking, productive people you'll find anywhere. The reason why the company I work for, Haas Automation, came to Oxnard is because the permit system worked back in 1996. It wasn't working in Los Angeles where we were. What sold us was when the city told us that if you come here, we guarantee you that your permits will be processed and approved by the building department in 2 weeks. And based on that, we bought 88 acres here. We've now built over 1 million square feet and over 1,400 high-paying jobs. It doesn't matter how you zone this property if you can't get the permits.
Thank you, Mr. Starr. Well, our second question is, we'll first go to Mr. Rasmussen, then Councilman Madrigal, and last, Mr. Starr. Your question: the largest piece of undeveloped land within the limits of Oxnard is in the East Village neighborhood, just south of the St. John's Hospital, one of the largest employers for the city, east of Rose Avenue, and north of Camino del Sol. The Del Sol High School is now situated in a significant portion of this property. The current zoning is largely R2PD, multiple family residential plan development, and in the general plan as residential low-medium. Would you support a change that encourages more or less housing than more or less housing than would be planned there, or believe that the current zoning fits? What would be the best development, if any, in this plot of land? Mr. Rasmussen.
So I believe we should do more homes. Like I said, there's not enough homes for our citizens in Oxnard. Yeah, that's all I got on that topic.
Thank you, Mr. Rasmussen. Next, Councilman Madrigal.
Thank you very much. As far as the undeveloped pot of land in East Village, I do agree with what is zoned right now. Now, would I change my mind in order to add a little bit more housing or take away some housing? The answer is yes. I am open-minded to seeing what necessarily fits there. I do feel that what is planned to be there right now would work. But when it comes to housing, yes, I am all in favor of building more housing in this city. So yes, I would be open to the idea of more housing there. But if there's a plan where, it ends up being that you need less housing to make something work, then I'm all in favor of that as well. But I do overall feel that housing is what's needed on that piece of land.
Thank you, Councilman Magical. Mr. Starr, you're last on this question.
The challenge with these developments these days is that they don't have the infrastructure to support them. We've got problems where we build houses, they're way too dense, there's not enough parking, not enough garage spaces. We do not plan very well at all. Instead, we just basically bow down to whoever has a development proposal, and we think, oh, we're gonna get these fees, and we don't care about what the residents are going to be, how they're gonna be adversely impacted later on. We need to have, it's fine to have high density as long as you have adequate parking. If you have to build up and put a parking structure, fine, but you can't cause problems for the nearby neighbors by having people spill over their parking into the next neighborhood over because we failed to plan and this developer wasn't willing to put in the parking resources to make it happen.
Thank you, Mr. Starr. And our last question about a district-specific topic will first go to Mr. Starr, then Mr. Rasmussen, and finally Councilman Magical. Your question: although not within the city limits of El Rio, many residents in this unincorporated area feel that they are already a part of the city of Oxnard. What reason should or should not the El Rio residents make a push to officially be a part of Oxnard? Mr. Starr.
I'm sorry, you're saying for what reason they should have?
What reason should or should not the El Rio residents make a push to officially be annexed into Oxnard?
I think that's up to them. I mean, if they want to, let them come by and say they want it. I don't think we should impose it on them. I've heard of other neighborhoods, stories involving the Rio Linda neighborhood where the city has orchestrated taking over, annexing areas where the residents didn't necessarily want it. And I think that's just wrong. I think you don't force people to become part of a city if they don't want to. So I'd say let them decide for themselves what they want, and let's figure out whether that makes sense for us at that point. But I think trying to force it down their throats and the city's attempt to just simply expand for the sake of expanding, I don't think that's wise.
Thank you, Mr. Starr. Next, Mr. Rasmussen.
I agree with that. I don't think we should force anybody to, be part of the city they don't want to be part of. If they do want to be part, I still let them vote, and we'll welcome them with open arms. That's all I got on that topic.
Thank you, Mr. Rasmussen. And last, Councilman Magical.
Thank you very much. Being born and raised here in the city of Oxnard, living in La Colonia for almost my entire life, there is an aspect of living in La Colonia that it's like literally neighborhood first. So yes, I am a resident of Oxnard, but I always say I'm a resident of La Colonia. Same thing with El Rio. Residents of El Rio always say, where do you live? El Rio. It's just El Rio. A lot of people do consider, people within El Rio consider them to be residents of Oxnard. They consider themselves being residents of Oxnard, even though technically El Rio is not part of Oxnard. It just happens to be like arm in arm. Now, will they ever truly join the city of Oxnard? The answer is probably no. They've always liked the aspect of being on their own. But there is some sort of brotherhood that residents of El Rio have, that connection with the residents of Oxnard.
Thank you, Councilman Magical. And now we'll move on into our last topic, just general miscellaneous in regards to the district race. My first question will go to Councilman Madrigal, then Mr. Starr, and Mr. Rasmussen. These questions are slightly different, so each person will have a slightly different question, but they're about the same thing. Councilman Madrigal, you are running for re-election for a third term. Why should voters return you to office?
Thank you very much. As I'm finishing my second term, I've kind of grown in the position, grown into what I've seen. My first term was generally the aspect of the sky is falling. That was the majority of my first term within the city. Second term, it's been the aspect of slowly but surely we'll get there. And now, as the reason why I'm asking for your vote for re-election for a third term is now the sun is out and it looks like, we are going to get to work and get those things that residents really want to see them come to life and flourish. Just recently, we are up for a grant from HUD to improve La Colonia neighborhood. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Madrigal. To Mr. Starr, you have run for office multiple times and have not yet been elected. Why should voters vote for you now?
Well, I've heard the incumbents say that change doesn't happen overnight. Well, apparently it doesn't happen over 8 years either. It is really difficult to oust an incumbent. I understand that. I think the last time an incumbent lost in Oxnard was in 2010, and it was in the aftermath of that scandal where they had the FBI raiding the city. So, this is a tough hill to climb. I get it that the incumbent has the advantage, but I just don't think he's serving Oxnard well enough. I never see him ask questions from the dais. I've never seen the level of inquiry that I'm used to seeing from a city council in Simi Valley where I grew up. I saw that back and forth between the council members and staff challenging their assumptions, asking them, why didn't you consider this option instead? I see none of that here today on the city council. We got 7 people on the council who just basically sit there.
Thank you, Mr. Starr. And last to Mr. Rasmussen. If I'm not mistaken, this is your first time running for election. Why should voters vote a new face onto the city council?
Yes, this is my first time running. The reason I'm running for city council is because, like I said, I've seen things over 22 years working alongside with the city. I came to the city in '89. The city was great. As I grew older, I've seen things that I didn't agree with, decisions the council made. They don't challenge other people and the decisions, so they just go along with their vote. Yes, let's do this. Yes, You should do your homework. You should go out to the city and see for yourself what's going on out there. So if you do get your vote, I will work very hard to bring the city back to where it was when I was a kid. I love living here. I've lived here, like I said, since '89.
Thank you, Mr. Rasmussen. We'll now move on to our second question that will first go to Mr. Rasmussen, then Mr. Starr, and then Councilman Madrigal. Your question, other than specifically on the city council, what other organizations and activities have you engaged with for the benefit of Oxnard? Mr. Rasmussen.
So I've worked for the Oxnard Performing Arts Center for the last 23 years. It's a small nonprofit. We do a number of community events for all our neighbors around the center. So I do so I'm understanding on community outreaches. And if you do vote for me, I will continue to do those things. Our kids are our future, so we need to mentor them in the arts, music. And those things are being taken away slowly and slowly. And that's the reason I decided to run. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rasmussen. Mr. Starr, you're next.
And the question is, what organizations have I been involved in?
Yes, correct.
So I am on the board of advisors for the Gene Haas Foundation. We give away millions of dollars every year to a lot of charities, many of them local. Definitely have to make decisions there. I'm also the founder and president of Moving Oxnard Forward, which is a community organization that has supported more transparency at City Hall and people being able to get value for the tax dollars they pay. We've got a number of initiatives on the ballot over the years. 5 of the 6 initiatives that we've put on the ballot, we have won. Sometimes the city sues me in order to overturn those measures, but the way I look at it is that they're really suing the voters because the voters were the ones that decided to place it into law and that law into effect to begin with. So definitely have a lot of experience getting things done. If you want somebody who gets things done, you want me on this council.
Thank you, Mr. Starr. And last, Councilman Madrigal.
Thank you. My day job, I do work in the field of education. So over the last 17 years, I have helped youth directly here in the city of Oxnard and working in other cities. I've helped students within the Oxnard residents that go to other schools outside of the city of Oxnard, not only graduate from high school, but ultimately get to college. I do serve on the alumni board for Cal Lutheran. I am the vice president of university relations on the alumni board for Cal Lutheran, and I do know the aspect it serves to help first generation students to graduate from college. Not just that, but it's Oxnard residents. So many of Cal Lutheran's students are first generation Oxnard students. And me not only graduating from there, but giving back and making sure that others have that opportunity as well so they can move on. And
Thank you, Councilman Madrigal. And now we'll move on to our third question. First to go to Mr. Starr, and then Councilman Madrigal, and last, Mr. Rasmussen. Many in the district and citywide may speak only or are more comfortable with utilizing Spanish. What should the city do, if any, to increase accessibility to our Spanish speakers? Is being able to speak Spanish as a councilperson important for District 3 and generally for the city? Mr. Starr.
You know, it's funny you mentioned that because I have walked all 5 neighborhoods of District 3, including Rose Park and La Colonia, and I was concerned about being able to speak Spanish. Well, we got devices now that I was able to use going door to door where I was able to translate my English into Spanish, their Spanish back into English. We had great conversations, and many people in La Colonia and Rose Park have my signs in their yards because they have never been visited by a council member ever. And I have visited them, and I've gotten their support. So I think the language barriers is very much overcomable, especially with today's technology. Can we do more? Sure we can as an organization, but I think that I can certainly overcome this, and I have every confidence in the world that I can serve the Hispanic community very, very well. And so far, based on their signs in their yards, they think so too.
Thank you, Mr. Starr. Next, Councilman Madrigal.
Thank you very much. Is Spanish important? Yes, it is. Overall, is it important in the district? Yes. Is it important in the city? Yes. Overall, it's just an important aspect of life. It may not necessarily be Spanish, it might be any other language. It's just great knowing more than one particular language. Serving the community, knowing that second language has been great. I've taught Spanish for the last 10 years. So I know the aspect of communication. It matters. It matters that someone can have that one-on-one conversation with you. Can the city do more? Yes, we could always do more. The aspect of having everyone feel comfortable coming to a meeting, having them feel comfortable seeing, what's out there, and, walking door to door. Yes, it's important in all 7 of the neighborhoods that this district entails, including the little part of El Rio and Island Acres.
Thank you, Councilman Madrigal. And our last is Mr. Rasmussen.
Yes, I think Spanish is very important. Most of our population in Oxnard speaks Spanish. So when I went to school, my mother told me, don't take French, don't take German, because people in Oxnard in California mostly speak Spanish. So it's good to speak the language. I speak the language fluently. So, and it's helped me throughout my life, being bilingual. Being able to understand somebody and being able to express yourself so they feel comfortable with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rasmussen. And our last question will first go to Councilman Madrigal, then Mr. Rasmussen, and then Mr. Starr. Elections are competitive, and generally, you're running because you think you're the best. Why are you the best, and what is one criticism of one of your fellow candidates on the dais? Councilman Madrigal.
Thank you. Elections are always competitive. Elections, some may argue, are a popularity contest. Elections are a time to see what's out there. Now, the aspect as to why I feel that people should vote for me is, I was born and raised here. I have experience doing the job. I do care for the residents. I do care for the neighborhoods and the area. Genuinely speaking, my heart and soul is in this city, born and raised here, never leaving, its home. Criticisms of anyone else, realistically, I don't buy by that simply because I feel that ultimately you are asking for people to vote, not to down other people in this. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman Madrigal. Next, Mr. Rasmussen.
Politics, it is very competitive. I don't mind being competitive with other people. The one thing I don't like is when other people talk bad about other people. So if you do vote for me, I would promise that I will work very hard for my district and for the city of Oxnard. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rasmussen. And last, Mr. Starr.
So why am I the best? Well, I think we all have something to add to this conversation, but I can tell you that I'm a high-ranking manager in a billion-dollar company. I get things done. And for the last 8 years, I've heard nothing getting done here. And I think things need to get done. I think that we need to have people who are willing to go out door to door like I have throughout the entire district. I've knocked on almost 5,000 doors. I have over 977 yard signs in people's yards. No one's ever seen anything like that because no one has ever done that before. No one's put that type of energy before into a campaign here in Oxnard, at least not in the last 30 years. So you want somebody with energy. I have energy. I don't think what we have today is energetic.
Thank you, Mr. Starr. And that concludes our question section of the forum. We will now begin the 90-second closing statements from all candidates in the reverse order of the opening statements. The first candidate, Councilman Madrigal, will start with their closing statement, followed by Mr. Aaron Starr, and then Mr. Victor Rasmussen. You can now begin, Councilman Madrigal.
Thank you very much. First, thank you everyone for coming this evening in person, and thank you everyone who is on Zoom and everyone that will watch this video in the coming weeks. Overall, I've been on this council now for close to 8 years. I've seen, like I've previously stated, the good, bad, and the ugly with this city. And, things are on the up and up. We do have a surplus, which we haven't had, a giant surplus that we haven't had in a long time. We are working through our things. Are we perfect? The answer is no. Definitely not. Could we improve? Yes, we can. And we will continue to improve as a city. Why? Because you have people that you trust up here that will do best for the residents of the city of Oxnard. Ultimately, I was born and raised here, lived the last 36 years of my life in La Colonia, call it home, call it, my little paradise. But at the end of the day, I work here, I live here, I'm here for the residents of Oxnard. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman Madrigal. Next, Mr. Starr.
Thanks for being here tonight. We Oxnard residents deserve better. After 8 years of failed leadership, it's time for a change on our city council. I have a record of fighting for local residents and neighborhoods. When City Hall imposed excessive utility surcharges on residents, I fought back in court and got those illegal surcharges refunded. I'm fighting for residents again this year with ballot measures to stop City Hall from double charging residents of one neighborhood for city services. I've been walking door to door, talking to thousands of residents in District 3. Most have never heard from their incumbent city councilman. As your new city councilman, I will actively engage our community and always put residents first. Towards that end, I will oppose higher taxes because people in Oxnard already pay too much. I will support reforms that reduce housing costs and help more Oxnard families to afford to own a home. I will expedite street repairs long neglected by career politicians at City Hall, and I will take action to address the negative impacts of homelessness on our quality of life. I respectfully ask for your vote to restore the people's voice at City Hall and to make the positive changes needed to build a better future for Oxnard. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you, Mr. Starr. And last, Mr. Rasmussen.
Thank you for inviting me to speak in this forum. Yes, we did make changes in this council. And with your vote, I will work my hardest to change things that need to be changed in the city. As I said before, I've worked alongside the city for many years. And I know what needs to be addressed. So with your vote, I would change things in the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rasmussen. And that concludes our forum for City Council District 3. And again, thank you all to all the candidates for participating in this forum. It takes an enormous amount of time and energy to run for office, not just for yourself, but also for your family, friends, and supporters. We thank you for taking part in maintaining our democracy. I would also like to thank the INC Executive Board for approving these candidate forums, Mr. Adam Smith with the City of Oxnard for forum logistics, the INCO for hosting, and the City of Oxnard for the use of their council chambers. We thank all the candidates for your time to speak to the voters, and good luck to you all. At this time, we will transition back to INCO Chair Diana Velzi before starting the next candidates forum for the position of City Council District 4. Thank you, and Chair Velzi.
Thank you to the candidates for participating in tonight's meeting. We will now take a short break to ready the next panel for the upcoming, is it District 6? No, 4, right? 4, District 4 candidates. And we'll be back in a little over 10 minutes, maybe. It could be less, but in approximately 10 minutes. So I'm going to close the meeting right now. Take a break. Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order, please. Could we have quiet in the room, please? We'd like to get started. Please take your seats. It is now 7:24, and I'd like to call the meeting to order. I'd like to also welcome the next panel of the candidates from District 4. Ronald, will you please start your opening?
Thank you, Chair Diana Velzi. Good evening, Oxnard residents and those watching at home. I am Ronald Arwejo, a member of the Inter-Neighborhood Council Organization, INCO, and Chair of the East Village Neighborhood. I am your moderator for the position of City Council, District 4. We are proud to present the candidates for City Council District 4, and we have 4 of 5 of them present with us tonight. Ms. Veronica Robles Solis is unable to attend this forum due to a family bereavement. The INCO of the City of Oxnard consists of the chairpersons and executive boards of Oxnard's 44 active neighborhood councils, all being volunteers, giving residents the opportunity to participate in governmental decision-making processes and serving as an advocacy group for each of the neighborhood councils. This forum is being hosted by the INCO. As an organization, it cannot and does not publicly support any candidate for political office. This is an opportunity for voters to hear directly from the candidates to get the information they need to make an informed choice when voting. We are glad that all are here to hear from our candidates, and we do hope that the voters get the information that they need. The rules of this forum have been previously communicated to the candidates as follows. Candidates will be given 90 seconds to present their opening and closing statements. Questions will be posed to all the candidates, and each candidate will be given 60 seconds to answer. I repeat, 60 seconds to answer. Candidates may have 1 page of notes to refer to and will additionally have paper to write notes on. We will now begin with the opening statements from all candidates. The seating order was randomly drawn prior to this event. Please take note of the timer before you. The first candidate will be Mr. Daniel Chavez, followed by Ms. Gabriela Rodriguez, then Ms. Angela Whitcomb, and finally Mr. Efren Jimenez. You can now begin, Mr. Daniel Chavez.
Good evening, and thank you everyone for this opportunity to come and speak with all of you this evening. My name is Daniel Chavez Jr., a lifelong resident of the city of Oxnard. For nearly a decade, I have been a very strong advocate for the residents of Oxnard, and for the past 5 years served on local, county, and regional boards, putting the best interests of Oxnard residents at the forefront of all of those boards that I currently serve on. As a resident who's been stand at that podium week after week back in 2015 during our city's most difficult financial times, I stood there advocating for good governance and accountability from our city council. When our city council at that time wanted to increase the salaries and benefits of the executive leadership while our city employees had no MOU and services were being cut throughout our entire city, I called them out on that. I have been a very fierce fighter for our residents. I'm very blunt. You can go back to any video for the city, for our city council meetings, planning commission meetings, and you would see that my drive, my passion has always been for the residents of the city of Oxnard. As a father of 2, the wealth and quality of life for our residents is my top priority and will continue to be my priority for years to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Daniel Chavez. Our next candidate is Ms. Gabriela Rodriguez, followed by Ms. Angela Whitcomb. Ms. Gabriela Rodriguez, you have 90 seconds.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Muy buenas tardes esta noche. Mi nombre es Gabriela Rodriguez. I am a proud candidate for District 4, and I am a proud award-winning educator, a community advocate, and ultimately a person who has worked with a lot of community members to get them involved in the democratic process and to be involved in transforming their lives through not only education, but getting involved in career opportunities and much more. I currently work at the community college here in Oxnard and have been doing so for the last 9 years. Under my leadership, I've worked with community leaders to open a basic needs center, Dream Resource Center, and many other programs that create long-term sustainable change at the community college. Prior to that, I worked in the nonprofit sector for 10 years. So for the last 19 years, everything that I have done has been in service to my community, specifically the city of Oxnard. I'm a proud daughter of farm-working parents, and education has become the vehicle for my siblings and I to transform our quality of life. I am excited about this chapter of being in service as a city council member and highlighting the voices of the community at large. So for me, it's a privilege to be sitting here in front of you, and I'm very excited about partnerships. I'm a problem solver. I am a person who works very hard and will translate all of those qualities into serving my community, the city of Oxnard. So I look forward to this.
Thank you, Ms. Gabriela Rodriguez. Our next candidate will be Ms. Angela Whitcomb, followed by Mr. Efren Jimenez. You can now begin, Ms. Angela Whitcomb.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Angela Whitecomb. I want to thank the INCO for putting on this event tonight. I know that it's not easy and it took a lot of work, so I appreciate all the efforts that you put forth. As a neighborhood chair, I want to recognize all the chairs that are out there and the hard work that they put forth. Allowing our neighbors to have a voice and their environment is important. I encourage everyone that's out there and listening to get involved in your neighborhood councils because you are the voice of this city. I sit on multiple boards. I am the chair of the Downtown Improvement Association, the Parks, Recreation, and Community Services Commission, as well as the chair of the Wilson neighborhood. So I've worked firsthand for multiple years trying to improve the quality of life here in Oxnard. I raised my family here. I involved in the PTA, the PTSA at Oxnard High School. My children were in the scouting program. I worked with mentorships with some very strong young men and women, and seeing them rise to the occasion has been one of the most exciting joys of my life. I'm very much involved with improving quality of life for our citizens of Oxnard, working to get grants so that we can build our parks and building teams. I'm a team builder, and I believe that we can't do this on this own. We need to rally the troops and work together. Thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Angela Whitcomb. And our last is Mr. Efren Jimenez. You may begin.
Hello, my name is Efren Jimenez II. I was born in Oxnard, lived here all my life, except for 2 years in Santa Paula. But let's see. There's not much about me. I'm not as illustrious as some of my colleagues up here. I recently got my bachelor's degree in political science. I have a big interest in how political systems work and how power is distributed. A lot of the time, I feel like the people who have the biggest say in our government is generally people who are well-connected. And depending on the place, the climate definitely determines which people are in power. I feel like that's hindering a lot of growth and a lot of ideas from coming up. This is my second time serving as chairman of the Mobile Home Park Rent Review Board. I've been on the board for 5 years now, approximately. And I haven't done anything major, but I've gotten a lot of experience with making decisions that affect, people who, rely on whatever we come up with. I was also had a hand in revitalizing my neighborhood chair thingy board. I'm a service secretary treasurer right now. I was against Measure E because I figured we would just squander that. And essentially what I'm here to give is a thoughtful voice that's not hindered by what other people may be saying in my ear. I just want to make the best decision I can for the people in District 4.
Thank you, Mr. Efren Jimenez, and thank you all. We will now enter the question section of the forum, group by topic. The first will be on Oxnard governance. And our first question will be answered by Mr. Daniel Chavez, then Ms. Rodriguez, Ms. Whitcomb, and then Mr. Jimenez. The first question is, Oxnard has a council manager form of government in which the city council sets policy, and the city manager manages the day-to-day actions. Is the council manager form best for Oxnard, or would you recommend for it to move to a strong mayor system in which the mayor would supplant the city manager and appoint the department heads? Mr. Chavez.
Thank you for the question. Again, this has been a topic that has come up in the years past where I felt because our city is growing so much as being the largest city in Ventura County, over 210,000 residents strong and growing, that a format into a charter city, very similar to what LA has, where the mayor is elected by every single resident, but they manage the day-to-day operations. As our city continues to grow, we need to realize the small town mentality doesn't work anymore. Part-time council members, part-time mayor doesn't work anymore. We need to have a full-time mayor, full-time council, so that they are constantly working on the challenges and the issues that are most important to the residents of Oxnard. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chavez. Ms. Rodriguez, you're up next.
Thank you for the question. I think it's very important that we do a gap analysis and we consider the different aspects of what we need as an infrastructure, right? I think many times folks pose questions based on somebody's likeness, how much we think somebody's doing a good job or not doing a good job. I think we really need to evaluate what our city needs, and I think having a listening campaign and really evaluating what gaps are in our city. I do know that this year we've had a very strong advocate for Oxnard. You know, our budget is balanced, and there's been a lot of work happening behind the scenes. I agree with what was just shared about the part-time investment, but I think there's a lot of beauty in having volunteers like us really stepping up and representing student voices and not having like a paid position full-time, really making sure that we have representations from different walks of life and different opportunities. So I really think that we would need to evaluate that.
Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez. Our next is Ms. Wycombe. You have 60 seconds.
I think we need to have whoever's best qualified. We need to make sure that if our city manager, if we do keep a city manager in the program that we have the best choices, somebody who's educated for it and who can do the best job. If the mayor does that job, same thing. There is something to having cohesion, but there is something else to have accountability. And that's what's most important. It's who's going to do the best job and where are we going to find it. If we limit ourselves to just having the mayor, we are limited ourselves to just the population in Oxnard and not somebody who's qualified, who could do the best job. I'm not saying that somebody from Oxnard is not qualified. All I'm saying is that we have more choice. So I don't have a problem either way. I just want to make sure that whoever's managing our city is the most qualified and can do the best job. And having our council be fully informed and educated is the best way we can make decisions.
Thank you, Ms. Wycombe. And our last is Mr. Jimenez.
Could you repeat the question one more time?
Oxnard has a council manager form. Would you recommend for it to go to a strong mayor system?
I would not. I actually, I value the separation of powers when it comes to the abilities that are granted to officials. I think that the manager-mayor difference or manager-council difference is it's a good way to keep that in line. That being said, I think that it depends on the person as well. I've sat in an open house recently where the city manager did everything but tell us to vote a certain way on a certain proposition. So it depends on the quality of those leaders. I mean, mayors are generally, they have a party in their ear usually telling them what to do. So it depends on the people, but I believe in that system of splitting the power.
Thank you, Mr. Jimenez. We'll move on to our second question, which will first be answered by Ms. Rodriguez, then Ms. Wycombe, Mr. Jimenez, and then Mr. Chavez last. Your question: no matter the results of the election, we will not only have a non-incumbent for District 4, but also for the position of mayor. What attributes do you think would be best for mayor? If you have decided already, who do you plan to vote for mayor and why? Ms. Rodriguez.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, there's going to be no incumbent for both mayor and for District 4, and I think it's a great opportunity to bring fresh ideas, build on what has already happened, and grow the city's success. I definitely have not selected a candidate. I think that we really need to make sure that whoever steps into the role has enthusiasm, gusto, experience, and is going to be supporting not only the city staff, but our community at large, and has a vision that we can all stand behind. So I am excited about having a competitive process for both District 4 and for the mayor. And at least for the time being, I just think that both candidates have a lot to offer. And I think the candidates I have seen in the campaign trail are sharing a lot about their vision, and I look forward to taking my private vote at the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez. Next is Ms. Wycombe.
I concur. I have not chosen who I'm going to vote for mayor. I want to listen to the forums and find out where their positions are. There's 2 more forums, and some of them are very near and dear to my heart, so I'm waiting to voice my opinion once I have one. So I'm excited that we're having some new fresh faces coming up and learning and sharing their ideas and their enthusiasm for the city, and having this opportunity to learn from each other and share our ideas, and building a team is really important. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wycombe. Next, Mr. Jimenez, you have 60 seconds.
Well, first of all, it's a pretty weird question. I feel like it's indirectly endorsing a candidate through one of us. That being said, I haven't picked anybody. I only know 2 of them. One I know personally, but I'm not going to vote for her probably. Let's see. Just being honest, guys. The mayor's, for me, the mayor's not like us, where it has to do with a certain district or a certain group of people that you should be primarily focusing on, even if they don't. I think that the mayor needs to be aware that they're not just voting for whatever district they're in, they're voting for all of us. And so when they endorse certain things that kind of like spit in the face of other people, like certain populations, it's not fair and it's not good. I feel like a mayor needs to be aware of how they'd be alienating groups that they may not be part of and so forth. So, yeah. But they just need to be open. They need to be open-minded and able to represent all of Oxnard, not just a piece.
Thank you, Mr. Jimenez. And last is Mr. Chavez.
Thank you for the question. I have made a decision on who I'm voting for, and I agree with a lot of the comments that were made about making sure that we have the right person representing our city. One correction that I would say to one of the comments is that every single vote that a council member or the mayor makes affects every single resident, whether you're part of that district or not. So it's not secluded to one particular district. This is not an endorsement. I agree, this is an odd question to be asking council candidates about another race. I've decided to support Luis. I believe the amount of outreach that he has had in our community for a number of years is important to the community. You can see it through tons of social media. I've been walking my neighborhood, speaking with...
Thank you, Mr. Chavez. We'll now move on to our next topic of the economy and finances. Our first question will go to Ms. Wycombe, then Mr. Jimenez, followed by Mr. Chavez, and then Ms. Rodriguez. Your question: Measure E is a 1.5-cent local sales tax passed by the voters in 2020 to provide for services like 911 safety medical response, financial recovery, and accountability, and does not expire. Has the city directed funding from the measure appropriately and in the best interest of the city? Why or why not? What would you do to maintain or change the expenditures going forward? Ms. Wycombe.
Yes, Measure E has done a lot of work, and it's got a lot of work left to do. We are seeing the improvements in our roads and our parks. I've seen it firsthand. Things could move faster. We could be more efficient, and that's something I want to work on with city staff and the fellow council members if I am elected. But Measure E is vital to the health of the city. We all remember the state of our environment before we passed Measure E. Our roads were dilapidated, our parks were falling apart, nothing was being maintained. The deferred maintenance that's gone back 30 years is apparent everywhere you look. The Carnegie was closed, the back is dilapidated, and these are just small locations. The boxing gym had a mold problem because we couldn't fix the roof. So the priority list is long, and we've got work to do.
Thanks, Ms. Wycombe. Next is Mr. Jimenez. You have 60 seconds.
As I said earlier, I was opposed to Measure E. Whenever you raise the sales tax to over 9%, you can't really do it again. And people like Gabe Turan and Manuel Herrera were adamant about doing this, saying it was going to be the best. You know, we needed it for all the things that were listed, but it was a general fund tax, so it's not like it was actually specifically delegated to any of those things. And we see those trucks that are, quite frankly, an insult to all of us that say Measure E on the back, and it's just them cutting shrubs. They could have found money to do this anyway. They could have balanced the checkbook beforehand, before asking us to pay another 1.5 cents on everything. It's just, it's pretty ridiculous because now we can't actually go up again. We can't do it again. So they kind of squandered it, in my opinion. Like I said, it's a general fund, and if you don't know about the general fund, it goes to anything. It's not allocated to any certain thing, but they touted it as this, oh, we need it for this, we need it for that, when really they probably just needed it to cover their bottoms from not balancing everything properly. So,
Thank you, Mr. Jimenez. Next, Mr. Chavez.
Thank you. And during my opening statement, I talked about knowledge and experience. 2015, 2016, I stood at that podium during a time when our city was going through a very serious financial crisis. We had over 135 vacant positions that were eliminated from the budget. We had multiple city vehicles from multiple departments falling apart, police vehicles falling apart while they were transporting people or officers on their way to the calls, fire trucks in lack of repair. Measure E, I supported it, I campaigned for it, because it is something that is going to be benefiting our city, and it has. Our roads are being repaved, our parks are being worked on, we are seeing improvements. But here's the kicker, when our city receives lawsuits, it puts a stop on our bonds. And that's what we're facing right now with one of our residents suing our city once again.
Thank you, Mr. Chavez. And last is Ms. Rodriguez.
Can you please repeat the question again? I'm so involved with everything everybody's sharing.
Measure E, was
Yes.
it good or bad? Would you change or what would you change or maintain about it?
I think Measure E is necessary to maintain and make sure that we continue the maintenance and the infrastructure of our city. I think I support Measure E, and I do think that it comes down to accountability, right? Checks and balances, and making sure that the intended tax that's really on the backs of the people here in Oxnard is going for its intended purposes, and that we stay focused on the end game, which is the well-being, the health, and the infrastructure of our community. So I know, like for parks, for example, we've had, every time we tighten our belt, we keep cutting, and I feel like District 4 has taken a lot of cuts that should be prevented, and we need to come back to prioritizing the access to green space, making sure our roads are up to par, and we need to make sure that it's not on the backs of the people for granted.
Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez. We'll move on to our next question that will first be answered by Mr. Jimenez, then Mr. Chavez, Ms. Rodriguez, and last by Ms. Wycombe. Do you believe that downtown Oxnard has been adequately managed and served by the city? What actions and or proposals will you champion to increase the growth and vibrancy of this area? Mr. Jimenez.
From what I understand, from some of my research in 2020, there were actually a lot of ideas and programs that they wanted to do for downtown to try to get something about getting more traffic into the center area and more people living there and so forth. I don't think that actually happened. I think it's pretty much the same situation as before. That being said, downtown is not that bad, honestly, besides all the homeless people, which makes it kind of to where people don't really want to go to those shops and stuff. They feel unsafe. And that's a big deal, but I feel like downtown's doing okay. It's probably not the money printing machine that the city council and everything was hoping for, but yeah, I don't think it's necessarily that horrible. They could definitely try to implement some of those, trying to get more traffic downtown, but seems like a big hurdle. Actually, I haven't heard any good solutions to this yet.
Thank you, Mr. Jimenez. Mr. Chavez, you're next.
Thank you for that question. I can honestly tell you that the city has been neglecting downtown. There are 6 plans, to my last knowledge, that the city was going to revitalize downtown Oxnard, and each one of them fell through. We also know that Measure E is helping a little bit, but there still needs to be improvement. During my time on the Planning Commission, we approved a plan of having the 3 rings when it comes to downtown, the core, the middle, and the outer ring. So we are going to start seeing mixed-use building in downtown Oxnard that is hopefully going to have businesses on the bottom, housing on top, to create that live, work, play experience. We have the mall strip right there where the cinema's at, but definitely we need to invest more in downtown Oxnard. It is the heart. It is where we have our events. It's where we have our festivals. And if we only make it look nice during that time, we're failing.
Thank you, Mr. Chavez. Next, Ms. Rodriguez, you have 60 seconds.
Thank you. I think downtown Oxnard needs a lot of TLC. I think we need mixed use and affordable housing, as was shared earlier, near public transportation. Homeless, we need wraparound services that help support. I know the Navigation Center is being built, and we have already rezoned a lot of areas in downtown Oxnard. We need to attract development so that we do have a vibrant community in that space. I love activities like we do the first Thursday lunch or the food trucks. However, I would love to highlight the small businesses in downtown because many of those food trucks aren't coming from this local community. So how about those mom and pops? And we highlight those local small businesses in our community. I think it's important that we support our small businesses, and I want to be the champion that is trusted to help bridge that communication and make sure that, maybe there's a discount if you come to the first Thursday. Ventura has First Friday, we can do First Thursday.
Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez. And last, Ms. Whitecomb.
Thank you for this question. As chair of the Downtown Improvement Association, I could tell you firsthand that the city is really lacking in their responsibilities to take care of the downtown. We have 1 police officer and 1 security at any one time in the downtown. We have a Carnegie Museum that's not only closed but not maintained properly. The outside of the building is abominable. We have city properties that aren't being maintained and are blight on the small businesses in downtown. I own a small business in downtown. My family owns a small business in downtown. I am the 3rd generation advocate for the downtown. So this is a long, hard fought battle for our community, and we can do better. We need to clean up our permitting processes so our small businesses can open and be productive. We go out of business before we can even open the doors. We can do better, and we need to do that through partnerships. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Whitecomb. We'll now move on to the topic of homelessness and affordable housing. The first person to answer the first question will be Mr. Chavez, followed by Mr. Jimenez, Ms. Whitecomb, and last by Ms. Rodriguez. Your question: overpaying is defined by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development as spending more than 30% of a person's or family's income on housing costs. Based on the latest Oxnard housing element, just as of August of 21, 31% of owner-occupied and 54% of renter-occupied units are overpaying. What measures could be implemented in the city to relieve overpayment? Mr. Chavez.
Thank you for the question. As chair of the Planning Commission, I led our commission in adopting the housing element that ultimately was approved by the City Council. So I'm very proud that we were able to identify where we can have those housing and affordable housing. In order to address it, we have this thing called in lieu fees. And developers, when they come into our city, they pay the in lieu fees so that they don't have to have affordable housing on their property. That's a problem, because when you look at the average income for our residents, it's not going to be able to pay for this housing. So We need to be able to work with our state partners because I believe we need to start changing some of our development codes so that we, as a city, have the ability to adjust the percentage of affordable housing that each developer has to have based on need and on the area that they're going to be in. It's a partnership, and because have built those partnerships, we have a very strong path towards it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chavez. Next, Mr. Jimenez.
Okay, one more time, real quick, just to paraphrase.
What measures could be implemented to relieve overpayment?
Okay. I think that measures probably aren't going to help much. It's more of a, when it comes down to it, it's kind of a, what do you call it, like an atmosphere of people who are invested in making real estate happen. I know especially, I hate to say it, state Democrats and things like that, they're very invested in real estate. They make a lot of money off of infrastructure, off of building, off of line, that kind of thing. But then they also go towards rent control and things like that as a way to alleviate it towards the public. And that's happened in our city, as I'm sure you guys all know. Blah, blah, blah. Unfortunately, unless that, what do you call it, dang, can't think of the word. But if that doesn't change, then they're not gonna be able to afford affordable housing here anyway. So really no measure is gonna help with that unless we can change how people feel about, how people think towards development here.
Thank you, Mr. Jimenez. Next, Ms. Wycombe, you have 60 seconds.
We need to build, like Mr. Chavez said, and we need to work with our partners, and we need to make sure that we have enough housing. If the more housing we have, it's a simple supply and demand issue. The more housing we have, the more affordable it becomes. But we also know that that's not going to happen overnight. So we do have rent control in this city, and it is helping our families. But it only goes so far in some ways, and in other ways, it's harming our property owners who would build more because now they're afraid that they're going to be stuck with a tenant that's bad. I've knocked on a lot of doors, and I've asked this question because I'm not an expert in this area, and I've heard a lot of mixed things. But one thing I have heard is the necessity for more housing, and to make it more affordable, we're going to need to build it, and I think we're going to have to do more of a mixed-use idea.
Thank you, Ms. Wycombe. And last on this question is Ms. Rodriguez.
I think I appreciate a lot of the feedback that's been shared. I think building ADUs and incentivizing families who live in a zone where an ADU would be appropriate, making sure that those permits are accessible, well promoted, and even how to go through the very daunting process. I think that's important. Also, homelessness was mentioned. I think it's some of the best cities who have been addressing homelessness in a positive way, consider wraparound services, right? So there's a lot that goes into it. We need to partner with our county, with our state. How do we draw down some funding so that we help make it more attractive for families to not only build, but make it affordable for folks to fill those units? I've seen a lot of building in the collection area, but I've also seen a lot of empty units. So how do we make sure that developers can incentivize both mixed-use housing, and we need a regional solution to this very local issue, and we all need to work together.
Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez. We'll now move on to our second question about homelessness and affordable housing, which will be answered first by Ms. Rodriguez, then Mr. Chavez, Mr. Jimenez, and then Ms. Wycombe. Your question, as stated on the city's website, the homeless crisis impacts every city in California. In Oxnard, the city offers many services and resources to help do its part to solve the statewide crisis. In 2024, the point-in-time homeless count data showed that the city experienced a 10.3% reduction in individuals experienced with homelessness. Additionally, 3 new housing projects, the Central Terrace, Casa Aliento, and Casa de Carmen, will be completed in fiscal year 24 to 25, providing over 200 housing units to help support homeless and low-income households. How and to what extent should the city support housing development? What is your experience in housing and planning developments? Ms. Rodriguez.
Okay, I see an affordability crisis, and we need an all-of-the-above solution, both affordable housing, better wages, working with local unions and businesses to make sure that our families are taken care of, right? I appreciate that there are new developments and units, 200 units sounds amazing, but the reality is that even beyond what we see on the streets, I grew up with multifamily housing, and I would never consider myself that I was experiencing homelessness, but by definition, a lot of the families and students that I work with at the community college, it's a unique experience that we really need to become proficient in how do we support so that we alleviate some of the burdens that our families are going through. So I know that change takes time. Development is not a light switch that you turn on from one day to the next. So as Oxnard is growing, how do we grow sustainably and conscientiously so that that we support projects like Terrace, Casa Aliento, and
Thank you, Ms.
Casa Carmen.
Rodriguez. Our next person will be Mr. Chavez. You have 60 seconds.
Thank you for the question. A lot of projects when it comes to housing, I was on the planning commission when we approved those. A lot of those conversations and dialogues with the developer was, hey, how about you increase the percentage of affordable housing units? How about you work with local labor groups in order to make sure that we keep our jobs local so that we keep our families together versus them driving outside of the county. When we deal with homeless, we need to understand that it's not just a single point of how did they get there. There's multiple pathways to become homeless, whether it's drug addiction, mental illness, financial hardships, domestic violence, and so on. There is a large area that is so complicated when it comes to homeless, but the best way that we do it is that we work with our state partners to secure that funding that the state has, along with that sales tax, and we work with the county to secure those resources for the Ventura County Behavioral Health. Bringing those partnerships together and making it a regional of the area, we'll be able to start addressing it.
Thank you, Mr. Chavez. Next up is Mr. Jimenez.
Well, first off, homelessness is a big issue. A lot of those, I know a lot of people who, obviously I'm the only person up here who doesn't have a candidate statement in the booklet. It's pretty expensive. So, I've worked a lot of retail jobs, and I know a lot of people that work retail, things like that. Those people are getting hit every hour practically with theft, dangerous people, and those people are just camping out outside their work. If you drive down Saviors, you're going to see colonies of homeless people. So I don't know. I understand that's a stat, but it's not a realistic interpretation of what's happening in our town and how people are affected by the homeless problem. Also, just real quick as an aside, I remember attending this thing where they wanted to do these housing units, and they specifically mentioned something about how they could only have 20 to 30% or up to 40% of affordable housing whenever they do a development, especially downtown. They were like, oh, we have to have at least 50% of normal housing costs.
Thank you, Mr.
There you go.
Jimenez. And last on this question is Ms. Whitecomb.
We have to look at this holistically. There's a big difference between being a strung-out vagrant and a mom who's lost her house and is trying to support her family and is living in a camper next to this kid's school. We have a huge diverse population of the unhoused, and these new developments, they're dropping the bucket to the problem. We do need to work with our state, and we do need the wraparound services, and we have to look at this from every single angle possible. And we have to have accountability and laws, and we need to enforce those laws, but we need to do that with compassion. And the only way that we can do that is to make sure that we have the carrot and the stick. We need to make sure that there are the support services for those who want it and the stick for those who choose not to get the help that we are offering as a society. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Whitecomb. We'll move on to our next topic in regards to the City Council's 5-year priorities. Our first question will be answered by Ms. Whitecomb, then Ms. Rodriguez, Mr. Chavez, and then Mr. Jimenez. One of the 5-year 2023 to 27 priorities for the City Council on the category of quality of life is to, quote, reopen the Carnegie Art Museum and create a process to study the Oxnard Performing Arts Center, end quote. What is your future vision of the Carnegie Museum and the Performing Arts Center, and how should the city further that vision? Ms. Whitecomb, you have 60 seconds.
Thank you for this question. This is a particular passion of mine. I think that we need to create a paseo cultural that ties the Carnegie, Plaza Park, Heritage Square, Campus Park, and the Performing Arts Center and Community Park East together. The buildings need to be maintained, and the Art Center, we can open an art center in the Carnegie that showcases the Oxnard art collection, as long as providing other art classes and performing arts options. It is a small building, so we need to use that space wisely. We need to continue partnering with promoters to increase programming, update the building to make sure that it's accessible and preserve its unique characteristics, and open the pack to the park so that the two are tied together so they can be programmed that way. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Whitcomb. Our next, Ms. Rodriguez, you have 1 minute.
Thank you so much. Earlier in my comments, I mentioned how every time we tighten our belt, it seems like our infrastructure, District 4, and Oxnard is really taking the brunt in our local backyard. So I agree that we need to make the best use of that space. I know that like the old Social Security building is used by local arts programs, the LGBTQ, Oxnard group, and many more. So I think we need to be creative and make sure that whatever decisions we make is going to be sustainable. So we have a fiduciary responsibility as City Council to make sure that whatever we do with the building is going to be sustainable, right? So it can't just be a Band-Aid. We can't have a tarp over the OPAC. We really need to invest in the community we want to see. So right now, we have to stop being reactionary and consider how are we planning for the next, 5 generations of my future nieces and nephews, great-grandkids and all and beyond. So it's very important.
Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez. Our next person, Mr. Chavez.
Thank you for that question. One of the comments that keep getting made up here is anytime that we have to tighten up our belts, we have to start closing things. But again, this is why knowledge and experience matters, because of the fact that when our city was looking at certain things to cut because we were not in a financial stable position, it was either close the museum, close the PAC, or close the fire station, okay? There's a list of priorities of what we should be able to be closed and what we should not close. Unfortunately, the Carnegie Museum was cut. The city had to think outside the box and get a promoter to come and operate here at the OPAC. The OPAC is doing great, but here's the thing, it could be even better. Not everyone can afford to go to Thousand Oaks. Not everyone could afford to go to Santa Barbara. The OPAC is our destination for live music, for performances, for events, and that's what we need to start focusing on, is rebuilding our cultural arts here in Oxnard.
Thank you, Mr. Chavez. And our last on this question is Mr. Jimenez.
Well, first of all, with Carnegie, that's always been a place I think is important for Oxnard as far visually. As far as function, I don't think anybody really cares what's going on in there as far as the regular people. But it's, like I said, it's a landmark. And when I'm telling people where that taco place is downtown, I'm like, oh, right across the street from Carnegie. So it's important to have it there. I mean, the LGBT crew usually put up their banners there on Pride Month. So, I mean, where else would they do it? The city manager seems to push some idea about taking everything out sort of thing. He doesn't really see it as like an enterprise. And so at that town hall I told you guys about, he's basically doing everything but telling us to scrap it sort of thing. Like I said, so I don't know. But and then with OPEC, I mean, that place is awesome. I used to go there all the time. I still try to go there for like concerts and stuff. But it's basically like basically treading water, barely. I mean, unless anything changes, that place is just going to be stagnant. It's not going to be anything spectacular.
Thank you, Mr. Jimenez. We'll move on to our next question that will first be answered by Mr. Jimenez, then Ms. Whitcomb, Ms. Rodriguez, and last by Mr. Chavez. Another priority for the City Council on the category of economic development is to, quote, renovate 4th Street between downtown and the train station to create a safe connection between the transit center and downtown, end quote. What knowledge or experience do you have with transportation, either specifically with the downtown area or more generally with the city and county at large? Mr. Jimenez.
Throughout my life, like I told you, I've been a retail worker for a long time until recently I became a sub. But yeah, I mean, I used to take the bus everywhere. I used to take I've recently gone into taking the train places. Downtown's still pretty dangerous and kind of scary right there, especially by the transit station. I mean, I don't really know what people could do about 4th Street. It's pretty beat up as it is. But nobody really, I don't think a lot of people really care about that. They're not trying to use that necessarily. They could do it if they want to, but it's only going to matter to people that it's only a matter of people who are paying attention to that. So.
Thank you, Mr. Jimenez. Next, Ms. Wycombe, you have 1 minute.
Well, it matters to me. I walk to work. I live near the downtown. 4th Street it's my backyard. We need to make sure that it is safe and that we have tree-lined streets and that our roads are accessible for more than just cars. They need to be used and safe for bicycles. And with the upcoming e-bike transportation that everyone's used, we need to make sure that we have protected bike paths. So I really would like to see that model gone citywide so that people can feel safe. If you've ever been on a bike and next to cars and buses that are flying by, you understand what I'm talking about. Green paint is not going to save you from distracted drivers. So 4th Street is really important. Increasing our public transportation and making it efficient and user-friendly is very good. And obviously, we need to work on our perception of downtown so that our people who are less aware and don't walk it on a daily basis understand what a beautiful place it is and can be.
Thank you, Ms. Wycombe. Ms. Rodriguez, you have 1 minute.
So when I think about downtown, I think of beautiful places like Cielo. I think about, at the train station, the coffee shop there. I'm excited about the possibilities of downtown. Do we need to give it TLC? Do we need community police patrolling? Yes, it should be a welcoming, safe neighborhood for all. And I definitely think that our transportation needs to be accessible, needs to be efficient, needs to be green. and I think that it takes all of us to make sure that we take care of our home, right? So I know that there's a lot of vibrant community hubs, right? BG's Cafe and much more. So I think for me, downtown has so many possibilities. It's home. I used to live between 4th and 5th and only moved between 7th and 9th Street. So for me, that's really my backyard as well, and going to high school at the Transportation Center.
Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez. And last on this question is Mr. Chavez.
Thank you for the question. For 11 years, I worked in public transportation, both here in Oxnard and in LA County. I serve on the Ventura County Transportation Commission, and I previously served on the MetroLink Board of Directors. So I know transportation, and I know how important it is to a community to be on the cutting edge when it comes to development. To upgrade 4th Street, very much needed, because when I used to drive down here for our bus system, residents would run across the street. Bus operators, off the record, we would park in areas so that people can make connections with their buses so that they can get home, they can get to work, they can get to medical appointments. That was the priority of bus operators, is making sure that they had those connections. So revitalizing downtown is only a small part, but we need to actually put that focus in there. Transportation is huge in our community and multiple communities across SoCal. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chavez. And now we'll move to our last topic, which will just be general questions. And we'll first go to Mr. Chavez, then Ms. Wycombe, Ms. Rodriguez, and then Mr. Jimenez. Mr. Chavez, if you are elected to the City Council, you will be only one of 7 voting members and will require support to get things done. What skills and experience do you have gathering support from others that will assist you if you get to City Council? Mr. Chavez.
Thank you. Like I said, for the past 5 years, I served on local, county, and regional boards. Planning Commission, Ventura County Climate Council, MetroLink Board of Directors, Ventura County Transportation Commission. I was always one of either 7, one of 17, one of 20, which means I have to be able to, one, eloquently explain why a certain project needs to be approved or why a certain project has a negative impact on the community. This current City Council, I have good relationships with each and every one of them, and I think promoting factual information when trying to address a certain project is more beneficial than using emotions, okay? that's how I plan on working with, 10 years, you just don't get there by just waking up one day and saying, hey, let's go ahead and build something, or hey, let's go ahead and push something. You have to work at it, and I put in that work. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chavez. Next, Ms. Wycombe, you have 60 seconds.
Thank you. I consider myself a team builder. As a Parks and Recreation Commissioner, I've built a team that goes out and reaches out to the community and finds out where the problems lie and comes back to the commission with recommendations. Recommendations that fall on deaf ears, but recommendations nonetheless. I'm also on the neighborhood chair, where Wilson neighborhood is a very active, vibrant neighborhood, and we work together to improve the quality of life, not only for our neighborhood, but our city. As the downtown chair, I've built a team in this past year that has made a huge difference in improving things. We were able to expand our district, and we're now working to expand our services through some new contracts that we're working on. So I can build a team and work well with others. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wycombe. Next, Ms. Rodriguez.
Thank you. I do understand we have 1 of 7 votes. However, I think one of the gifts that I bring to the table would be meeting people where they are, connecting, building, working with other people who may have a different perspective than me. So I'm one to seek that opportunity to meet people who don't think like me. That is something that I get excited. I think for the 19 years that I've been in service, whether in the nonprofit world or at the community college, everything I have built has been with the end goal in mind, which is the greater good, the betterment of our community, our students' sake. And something that I really appreciate is my students come from all walks of life. Students from 12 years old to 82 years old coming to the community college and saying, wow, you think I can do this? So for me, it's highlighting those experiences, making sure that I become the vessel to share the experiences that the real people in Oxnard have, and making sure that we find solutions instead of getting stuck in the problem. So I'm excited about the future generations, and I'm excited for the next few decades.
Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez. Next, Mr. Jimenez, last.
So I've had a lot of experience with leadership. Generally, I have it thrust upon me when I'm in a group of something and nobody seems to know what they're doing. I've also been playing management positions in my work and stuff. Like I said, I've chaired twice the board that I'm on. I feel like I have the ability to listen to all different aspects of an idea and determine what would probably be best for everybody in general. I feel like that's lacking these days when it comes to, especially the people in council. I think 6 out of 7 of them are Democrats, and a lot of them are like state, connected. They're really close with like Senator Limon and all that stuff. It's really a power system, and I don't think that I'm the kind of person like that. I lean conservative, but I'm not for parties. Parties are poison. I'm not into that. I want to make the best decisions I can make for everybody, and I think that I would be a decent avatar for that, I believe.
Thank you, Mr. Jimenez. Our next question will first go to Ms. Rodriguez, then Mr. Jimenez, followed by Mr. Chavez, and then Ms. Wycombe last. What is your definition of citizen engagement, and is it beneficial for Oxnard? Do you believe that there is a sufficient amount of it? If not, what can you do as council member to raise the level of citizen engagement? Ms. Rodriguez.
Most of my career has been dedicated to meeting non-traditional leaders and helping them connect with their ability to speak up, to share who they are, where they come from, and why participating in our civic democracy is important. So I think it's very important, it's imperative that the decisions of the city is shaped by the people. And I believe that more participation from regular citizens. I've been walking the streets, talking to neighbors, and they get excited about hearing the possibilities for Oxnard. Hablo español. I think it's important that we have the different voices heard, that we have information, access, education, and that we go to the people, maybe town halls, maybe meeting folks in apartment complexes and just doing listening campaigns so that we earn their trust and they feel safe enough to come and speak at city council and beyond.
Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez. Our next candidate, Mr. Jimenez.
So as I was just kind of saying, I believe in getting everybody involved. Okay, so in 2020, when I ran for city council, there were only like 8,000 people who voted for the mayor. I mean, in a place with 200,000 people. So it's obvious that such a small, limited amount of connected people are the only people who are participating in politics. And so I aim to include as many people as I can. You know, I know there's a lot of people who literally feel unrepresented. And I know that a lot of people, especially people like on our council, they're not going to give those people time of day because they don't align with their views. If you don't align with my views, I get that, and I want to hear about it because I'm probably wrong. You know, who knows? But the more people I hear from, the better. The better idea I have for the people going forward. And I think that we need to engage people who aren't. I mean, I guarantee more than 50% of people in Oxnard aren't going to vote for the mayor. I would even say upwards like 70% of them aren't going to, and that is a big deal. It needs to change. So.
Thank you, Mr. Jimenez. Mr. Chavez, you're next.
Thank you for the question. Civic engagement has been extremely important to me for nearly a decade. But it also starts with all of the chairs of the neighborhood that are in this room today that put on this forum for us. I believe strongly that council members should be regularly attending those neighborhood council meetings. Because what better way are you going to be able to engage with the residents of your district, of your community, than attending those meetings? But I can honestly tell you that it's also going to take a huge effort for members of those neighborhoods to start getting involved. But so we need to be creative. Social media is fine. Not everybody is glued to their face like my child right there in the front who loves social media so much. But the fact of the matter is civic engagement is important. We need to think outside of the box so that we encourage people to be participating in local government because they can't complain later on when something's going wrong. So we need to think outside the box. We need to open the pathways so that it allows everyone to feel comfortable coming and speaking or even simply listening. And that's why I'm so proud that we have the translations in the back. Thank you back there for your work.
Thank you, Mr. Chavez. And last on this question, Ms. Wycombe.
Thank you. This is an excellent question and something that needs to be addressed. We need to meet people where they are. We need to make sure they know what's going on. The city does an abominable job about getting the information out there. We can do better. Social media is a tool, and a lot of it's citizen-driven, but it's just one tool in the toolbox. We need to be out there at all of our public events, making sure that the information of all the city services is available and accessible. Right now, if you put on an event, sometimes you're lucky if you get one or two city departments to come out and that show up, if they show up at all. So I would like to see our city staff actually engaging in the community, putting on events where they tell people what's going on, doing more town halls, and making sure that everyone feels welcome and heard so that they keep coming back. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wycombe. We'll move on to our next question, which will first be answered by Ms. Wycombe, then Mr. Chavez, Mr. Jimenez, and last by Ms. Rodriguez. Many of you have already stated, but please expand on your community involvement with Oxnard. What does your community involvement say about you? Ms. Wycombe.
I think mine says that I love parks and to party. My civic engagement has been really, really involved with the outdoors. As a parks commissioner, I've been really pushing for parks and activities for our youth. I think it's very important to get our youth outside and into the environment. They're stuck in a classroom a lot, and you learn more when you go outside. You can breathe, you can move, you're part of the environment, and you realize that it's important. So my civic engagement has included the Parks Commission, the downtown, the neighborhood, and the PTSA, the Boy Scouts, the Girl Scouts, and also bringing in over 2,000 foreign exchange students to the community so that they can learn about our culture and we can learn about theirs. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wycombe. Next, Mr. Chavez, you have 1 minute.
Thank you for the question. I already had listed all the boards that I had served on. And in addition to that, I worked in education. I still continue to work in education for the past 10 years, working with thousands of students from TK all the way up to high school. And my involvement in our community has always been from day one when I stood at that podium is for the best quality of life for our residents. That has never gone away. And that's why when I started seeing that it's fine to be standing at the podium and talking about civic engagement or what needs to change, that you need to take that next step and start being involved. That's why I started joining all these boards, all these commissions, and highlighting the importance of focusing on Oxnard because we are the largest city in the county and oftentimes overlooked so many times. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chavez. Mr. Jimenez, you're up next.
So over the last year or so, I spent a lot of time or rather 2 years ago, I spent about a year with Alice Madrid, my neighborhood's chair, trying to revitalize that neighborhood council. We finally got it up again, but I like to get people involved. I'm very with people. I like to meet them and try to explain things to them. I do like a yearly deep dive into each proposition that's on the ballot to try to find whatever I can about it, try to make sure people understand it in and out, because they're always going to get one way about it that's like my way or your way. And I just believe in getting people involved where for me, I'm not anything special. I'm not like these other people who are, I don't know their education or whatever, but they all seem a lot more pristine than me. When it comes to me, I'm just a regular guy, and I try to get other people like me, I guess, the regular folks, I suppose, to try to be involved and think that maybe they can be part of politics too. So, I don't know.
Thank you, Mr. Jimenez. And last, Ms. Rodriguez.
I think that somebody who would be looking at my campaign and actually just my career would probably consider me a person who cares about her community. And I subscribe to servant leadership. I truly believe that we need to lead by example. I believe in accountability. I know that we can't please everybody. So when tough decisions need to be made, I'm ready to make those difficult choices and have the difficult conversations. So if ever I have to disagree with folks, I have no problem sharing why. I sit on several boards as well, Big Brothers Big Sisters, Oxnard College Foundation, Chiefs Advisory Council, and much more. And again, all of this has just been in service to my community because the work we do matters. And for somebody who, again, comes from farm working family and the sacrifices that my family has made to get me and my siblings to where we are, it's si se puede. We can do this. And when and if elected, then I look forward to contributing with everybody in this table because we all care about Oxnard.
Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez. We'll move on to our next question, which will be answered first by Mr. Jimenez, then Ms. Rodriguez, Ms. Wycombe, and then Mr. Chavez last. The only result that is certain in these upcoming elections is that the elected members in Oxnard in the new year will be Treasurer Phil Molina, District 1's Councilman Bert Perello, District 2's Councilman Gabe Teran, and District 5's Councilwoman Gabriela Basua. How will you, and do you have a specific priority that you could work with one or all of them? Mr. Jimenez.
Do you have a specific what?
How can you work with them?
Priority? Okay, cool, thanks. I intend to work with anybody that I'm part of a group with. I value everybody's opinion, like I said, even if, I've disagreed with people in the past. Everybody, no matter, like a clock is right twice, a broken clock is right twice a day. So you have to listen to everything because you never know when some golden nugget of information or insight that you didn't know about was there. So even if people have clashed with me on like Measure E, things like that, I still respect their opinion. And if elected, I'm going to work with my colleagues as much as I can. I understand that they have different backgrounds and they have different allegiances and so forth. But they're just trying to do what they think is whatever. They have their own perspective. They have their own background. Who am I to judge that? So I plan to work with everybody I can. And I think we need to work together. So.
Thank you, Mr. Jimenez. We'll move on to Ms. Rodriguez.
Thank you. I think it's always very important when you have a new group dynamic to really mind map. Where do we want to be in 10 years, 5 years? I know there's a 5-year master plan that was created during the pandemic, and we might have to recalibrate what that looks like. And I look forward to serving with the other council members and the representatives, city officials, city employees. There's a lot of folks who have been doing this for many years, if not decades or beyond. And I look forward to first listening and then contributing to co-creating something amazing. I was excited to learn recently that Senator Alex Padilla recently secured $95 million for the state of California to revitalize some parks. So College Park is getting $6.7 million. That's exciting. That's a project that, without speaking to the other council members, I don't know what my level of involvement will be, but that's something that I look forward to. I think it's important that we draw down other financial resources like that and we invest and reinvest in Oxnard.
Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez. We'll move on to Ms. Whitecomb.
Yes, I'm really excited about that grant for Campus Park. Also, it's as a member of campus of the Friends of Campus Park, that was a really big deal. Putting that grant together and working with the city. I've worked with Mr. Turan as a Parks Commissioner, and we worked really well together to improve our park system. Mr. Molina, I respect the fact that we need checks and balances in the city. We need to be fiscally responsible, and we need an objective set of eyes that makes sure that we don't get into financial troubles. Mr. Perella, we go back and forth. Sometimes we agree, sometimes we disagree, but we can have a conversation and come to a conclusion. Ms. Basua, she and I have worked together on some park issues that went well. I haven't had any problems with anybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Whitecomb. And last will be Mr. Chavez.
Thank you for the question. Recently, I had a conversation with Councilman Turan. Both of us agreed on one very important topic, and it's around our school youth. We both believe that we need to have, as already mentioned, protected bike lanes. We also need to have that safe school routes, and that's why my time on the Ventura County Transportation Commission, we approved funding for Oxnard to develop that safe school routes so that our kids are able to walk to school without being hit. We also know that there's new state law that has a certain distance from the curb so that they are able to safely cross the street without being hit. I'm able to work with anybody. I've proven it for the past few years that I'm willing to work with everybody. But the one main topic is around our youth. That's because of my kids and all the kids that I've worked with over the years. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chavez. And I'll make our last question a light one. I asked this at the end of the city clerk's forum. We'll go down the dais, but everyone will have a full minute. Where is your favorite place to go, or what is your favorite thing to do in Oxnard and why? Mr. Chavez.
There are a lot of great places. As someone who was born and raised here in Oxnard, I can honestly tell you one of my favorite places to go and eat is Tacos El Diablo, right here in downtown Oxnard. It's always nice when I'm waiting for my food to see all the cars, the walk of life. You know, people want to say downtown is dead and nobody cares about it, but the reality is it's vibrant, it's moving, things are happening, but we need to invest in it a little bit more. We do try to take our kids to the parks. Unfortunately, our park in our neighborhood is run down and not safe for our kids. So we get to visit other parks throughout our community. These are the issues that we need to start focusing on, is revitalizing the city as a whole. So Tacos Diablo is my favorite place. If you want to eat tacos with me, let me know and I'll be happy to have some tacos with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chavez. Ms. Rodriguez.
I have a list. I will say supporting small businesses has always been a priority. My family had multiple small businesses. We would sell flowers at the farmer's market and, sell strawberries. And I think for me, keeping our money in Oxnard is always important. I love El Tapatio. I love the chilaquiles and Bee Gees Cafe. But I'll tell you my secret stress reliever that now I won't be so secret. Grabbing ice cream and going down to the beach and just, taking a breath and breathing as I enjoy my ice cream, watching the waves. So we're very fortunate to live where we do. I love Oxnard and everything, like many things about it, everything. Of course, there's always room for improvement, and that's why we're here. But people could choose to live anywhere in the world, and I think that we were very fortunate to be born and raised here in Oxnard. So I'm just grateful for the opportunity to be considered as your next city council member.
Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez. We'll move on to Ms. Whitecomb.
So my favorite thing to do is to walk down Ormond Beach, where you go in and you park and you're greeted by Walter, and he tells you the bird count and what's going on and what interesting thing is washed up on shore, and to walk down all the way down to the Wainimi Harbor, grab some I don't know, fish and chips, or I don't know what, stir fry, and then to walk back. It's beautiful. You can pick up trash because there's always trash, and see the wildlife. The birds are absolutely spectacular and beautiful, and the canal there is amazing. I don't get to do that as often. So one of my local haunts is I live in the historic district, and I can walk to work. So what I do is I'll walk through the historic district and go into the downtown to my office. And every Thursday I shop in the farmers market, and having that opportunity and be able to have those green spaces is important.
Thank you, Ms. Whitecomb. And last, Mr. Jimenez.
Hello. So I lived in Oxnard all my life. And in my 20s, I was always, me and my friends would do recreational things like, that I don't do anymore as much, but we had to find places to park, we had to find places to go. So we were at the beach, we were at the airport by, McDonald's, the airport, right? That little parking lot, Kmart, when it used to be Kmart, we still go there and just chill, But I mean, man, Oxnard's great. It's got a lot of places that are just chill, and there's nothing to do really, but it's pretty chill, and that's the best part of it, in my opinion. I love the beach, man. It's awesome. All that stuff's great. It's fun to just go park and just chill somewhere, blast music, and hang out. And yeah, it's as far as food, I mean, I just get food, whatever. There's like Monarcas by my house. That's pretty cool. They're getting overpriced though, but yeah, just whatever. Oxnard's cool, man. It's got a lot of cool spots, and that's kind of why I care about it so much, honestly. It's cool. It's a good place. I like it.
Thank you, Mr. Jimenez, for that. And that is our time for all the questions. We will now begin the 90-second closing statements from all candidates in the reverse order of the opening statements. The first candidate, Mr. Jimenez, will start with their closing statement, followed by Ms. Whitecomb, then Ms. Rodriguez, and then Mr. Chavez. Mr. Jimenez, you have 90 seconds. You can begin.
So like I said, I probably should have mentioned I'm a substitute teacher also. I deal with, I deal with children a lot. I know a lot about education nowadays from the inside. But what I want to say mostly is just that, like I said, I've always been touted as a pretty smart kid. Like you ask any of my teachers, they're always like, oh my God, he's going to be a judge someday or something, but obviously I'm just a substitute teacher. But but I want to bring my skills to that. I think that I have a lot of charisma and character, and I think that people respond well to that, and I think that I can use that to get people involved and everything that's going on. I think I have a level head again on my shoulders. I've always wanted to be a lawyer, and during the time I was getting my bachelor, I thought maybe being a judge is kind of like pretty cool too. So it's cool being on the chairman of the Mobile Home Park Rent Review Board, because I do act as somewhat of a judge. I had to hear cases and stuff. I want to make this place as good as it can be, and I feel like too many people are motivated by what they hear and what's going on in their with their allegiances, and I'm not about that. Like I said, I've told you guys I'm conservative, but I'm honest with you. I'm leaning that way. That's all it is. I'm not a Republican or anything. I'm not a party guy. I know a lot of people, are, but yeah, it's just I'm trying to do the best I can for my district. So that way people can feel included, people can feel like their vote actually matters. And yeah, so I hope you guys will consider that and vote for me for city council.
Thank you, Mr. Jimenez. We'll move on now to Ms. Whitecomb. You have 90 seconds.
Thank you. There's a lot of work that can be done in Oxnard, but we have a thriving citizen group. We have a lot of really passionate people with great ideas, and they're experts in their own lives. And they need to be empowered, and they need to be heard, and they need to feel seen. And that's something that I'd like to bring to the city, is to make sure that everybody knows that they're welcome and that this is a safe space for you to voice your opinion and to be heard, and know that your opinion matters. Our youth today, they're quiet. They think that, the phone is where they're gonna be heard the most. They need to realize that where their voice is heard is here in city council, where the changes can actually happen. So I want to empower our youth, I want to empower our local citizens, and I want to make sure that Oxnard's united, that we're celebrated. And I know that people think I'm naive and I'm too friendly, but I'm not. I have no problem standing up for what's right and addressing what's wrong and finding solutions. I'm very goal-oriented, and I believe that if we work together, we can make things better, but it's gonna take a group effort. It's not something that just one person can do. It's something that we all need to do, and I would like to be the person that represents you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Whitcomb. Next is Ms. Rodriguez.
Thank you. I'm very excited about the partners that we have here, Naval Base Ventura County, Point Mugu, the Port of Wainimi. There's so many opportunities for our students, for our young people, and folks from all walks of life to have good paying jobs, to get careers. We bring in engineers from out of town who later realized just how unaffordable it could be. And I'd rather raise our youth here to have those good paying jobs. We need to create a pipeline where we prepare the workforce to be the movers and shakers. So I think it's important that we consider the end game in mind, and it's the wellness, the quality of life, and everything, and taking care of our environment. So when we consider the job opportunities that we have, when we consider the economic inequalities and closing those gaps, I think that there's so much power that we can do to come together to have affordable housing development, economic development, education, and workforce development. And I'm very proud to say that I've gotten some key endorsements, and I've never done politics in my life. I am excited about this. I've just been telling people who I am and what I'm about, what I believe in, and my track record shows that. So I've gotten endorsements from folks like Julia Brownlee, Steve Bennett, yes, the Democratic Party, statewide, city, and countywide, LIUNA, laborers, the Tri-County, the CCLC, Central Coast Labor Council. So I think it's very important that we lean into that.
Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez. And last will be Mr. Chavez.
I want to say thank you to the INCO for hosting, and thank you for everyone that's present this evening. Thank you for everyone that's watching at home. I didn't wake up one day and say, I want to run for city council. I didn't say that I'm going to jump from one position to the other. My investment in Oxnard has been genuine from the very first day that I stood at that podium. In 2016, 2 seats when we were still at large, and there were 12 candidates. I was the only one from South Oxnard. I grew up in South Oxnard. I still live in South Oxnard. I live in the southern portion of District 4. So when we talk about investment and passion, I have it. It's for my kids. It's for the kids, the thousands of kids that I worked with over the past 10 years in education, because they deserve to have a future that is better than many of us have experienced. That's why I've invested that time, that effort to build those relationships with city staff, with local organizations, with elected officials. And after the 2016 election, when all the other candidates disappeared, I stuck around because my passion didn't stop at an election. It's still going because I live here and I want a better quality of life for every resident of the city of Oxnard. I look forward to being your next city council member. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chavez, and that concludes our forum with the City Council District 4. Thank you to all. Thank you to all the candidates for participating in this forum. It takes an enormous amount of time and energy to run for office, not just for yourself, but also for your family, friends, and supporters. We thank you for taking part in maintaining our democracy. I would also like to thank the INCO Executive Board for approving these candidate forums, Mr. Adam Smith with the City of
Could we have
Oxnard
some
for
order in the
will.
chamber, please? We need
if-
to have order, please.
If
So
there's
the
no
meeting's-
objection, we'll recess for 5 minutes before you transition. Thank you very much, Chair.
We're not ready. Okay, I'd like to
Thank
call
you.
the meeting to order, please. Could we hit,
I'll continue.
can
I
we
would
have
also.
quiet in the chambers, please? Okay, go ahead, Ronald.
Thank you. I would also like to thank the INCO Executive Board for approving these candidate forums, Mr. Adam Smith with the City of Oxnard for forum logistics, the INCO for hosting, and the City of Oxnard for the use of their council chambers. We thank all the candidates for their time to speak to the voters and wish them luck. This is the last candidates forum for tonight. However, there is still one more night of candidates forums next Wednesday, October 9, for the position of City Council District 6 and Mayor. With the business of the INCO candidate forum now having been concluded, we will now transition back to Chair Diana Velzi for the next section of the special meeting of public comments. Thank you, and Chair Velzi.
Thank you, Ronald. We will soon open the floor for public comments. Before we do so, I would like to thank you all for being here today and for your active participation in this important forum. Your engagement truly highlights the strength of our community. I hope you have gained valuable insights into the candidates' platforms and their visions for our city. As we move forward, remember that your involvement doesn't end here. Stay engaged, continue to ask questions, and make your voices heard in the upcoming election. Let's take a moment to applaud our candidates for sharing their perspectives, as well as their moderators, Ronald Arrejo, whose efforts have helped illuminate these discussions. I would also have a heartfelt thank you to the INCO Executive Board for coordinating the details of this forum. Special appreciation goes to Ron Arroyo for his dedication and hard work in organizing this event. We'd also like to extend our gratitude to our Executive Secretary, Adam Smith, for his invaluable support. Finally, thank you to our INCO members for facilitating our gathering. Thank you once again for your time and commitment to our community. Okay, I'm going to move to item D, public comments. We'll now open the floor for any public comments pursuant to Government Code Section 54954.3A. At a special meeting, a person may address the legislative body only on matters appearing on the agenda. The presiding officer will limit public comments to 3 minutes per speaker. Mr. Secretary, do we have anybody for public comments? Okay.
There we go. Good evening, INCO. I'm sorry. My name is Abel McGanny. I'm the director for the Oxnard Downtown Improvement Association, and I just wanted to thank you for putting on this forum. I was taking notes because we're actually going to be hosting a forum as well on Monday, and ours will be focused solely on downtown affected policy and issues, and it will be hosted at Casa Lopez, 6 p.m. On Monday. Will be all the candidates for all the districts, council candidates, followed by then the mayoral candidates. Series of questions, again, focused on downtown revitalization. I was very happy to hear many of those questions here also too tonight and addressed. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Do we have anybody else? Do we have anybody online or anybody in the chambers?
No one online, Chair.
Okay. With that, without objection, I'd like to adjourn this meeting. We're now adjourned.